So these 5 Bacillus spore strains create a real unique powerhouse probiotic combination. These 5 strains are backed by a long history of use in humans. They're well studied, well used. These strains were developed by spore expert Dr. Simon Cutting out of the Royal Holloway London University. They're prescription grade probiotics. A couple of them are patented, including the Bacillus indicus, which creates the antioxidants right on site inside of your GI system. Each dose delivers over 4 billion live spores daily, which is the most potent spore probiotic available. And importantly, they test each batch of probiotic to make sure they've got the right species in there, which if you'll remember from earlier sessions, a lot of probiotics don't even match what's on the label when they actually go back and test. They make sure they're all in spore form because you want to make sure you get 100% of those 4 billion into your digestive system, into your intestines. And they also make sure that there's the proper potency for each of the species of Bacillus. And these are pharmaceutical strength spores, these formulations, and they're only sold by health professionals. And we've created protocols of use when you're using these to follow, and they're excellent probiotics. Now, Bacillus spores are true probiotics, and as I discussed in session 3, there were different traits that make up a true probiotic. Now, these spore formers are much different than your typical Lactobacillus and Bifidobacteria probiotics because they have spores, and these are seed-like structures that make them very resistant to heat and light and even the harsh conditions of the GI system. Another point that makes them a true probiotic is that they're able to survive both in oxygen and no oxygen environments like encountered inside of the gastrointestinal system. They also can colonize in every person's microbiome. They have a niche there, and not all other probiotics have that niche available. And they're able to shift the microbiome to that of favorable species. Again, these are all traits of true probiotics. And Bacillus spores also have an evolutionary significance. They are soil-based probiotics, and they actually mimic the important natural flora that's found in both traditional and Paleolithic or paleo diets. Now, these 5 strains of Bacillus are Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus indicus, Bacillus clausii, Bacillus licheniformis, and Bacillus coagulans. Why these 5 Bacillus strains? It's because they are the most widely used and well-studied strains for human use. Bacillus subtilis HU58. The HU58 just means it's a patented strain of B. subtilis. Now, B. subtilis is actually one of the most widely used, safe and effective probiotics, one of the most widely used worldwide, actually. And B. subtilis also produces over a dozen natural antibiotic substances within the gut. So it's producing antibiotics in there to help crowd out both opportunistic or pathogenic species that happen to be in the gut. And when it kills those off, it makes space for the friendly guys to help fill in those spaces. It also produces catalase and an enzyme called subtilicin, which also helps support the growth of your friendly resident Lactobacillus species. Another unique thing about B. subtilis is that it produces the vitamin K2. Now, K2 is a really important vitamin. It doesn't get enough notice, actually, and it helps with cardiovascular functions and bone restoration, and it has a role in helping prevent osteoporosis. And studies that have found people who eat vitamin K2 or more of it have the lowest risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, nattokinase, that comes from natto, if you've ever heard of that. It's a traditional fermented soybean food that they utilize B. subtilis for making it. And nattokinase is an enzyme in that particular food, but this bacteria makes it, and that's why it's in that food. And nattokinase is a really powerful enzyme that breaks down proteins. And studies have shown that nattokinase will actually break down fibrinogen, which is part of the plaque buildup in cardiovascular disease. It'll line the arteries, and so it helps break down that plaque, and therefore that will help cardiovascular disease risk. It also lowers both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. People consuming the natto fermented food also have had a reduction in cholesterol levels. And finally, B. subtilis also plays a key role in development of the immune system, and specifically the GALT. Now, GALT stands for gut-associated lymphatic tissue, and it's a vital part of the immune system inside of your gut. It's part of your gut tissue. Actually, your gut has the highest amount of lymphoid tissue in the body, and your lymphoid tissue is where you store your immune fighting army. Your B and your T white blood cells are stored there, and they carry out attacks against pathogens, and they help defend you. So between this gut-associated lymphoid tissue and the microbiome that's in your GI system, that's why you'll hear that statistic that 60 to 80% of your immune system is located in your digestive system. Bacillus indicus HU36. This is another bacillus that is a very potent stimulator of your immune system, like B. subtilis that I discussed previously. It's going to help kind of rev up your immune system engine and get those white blood cells stimulated to go out there and hunt down pathogens, whether it's in your GI system or out there in your body when you're dealing with some kind of infection. So that's a great benefit of both of these strains. The HU36 means this is a proprietary strain, and it's actually the first strain of bacteria that's ever been patented to actually produce antioxidants inside of your gut, which is actually kind of cool. When this bacteria grows in the laboratory, it'll actually have a kind of a yellow-orange color to the colonies of bacteria, and that's because it's producing these antioxidants. So it will produce carotenoid antioxidants inside of your gut. And that's actually the best place to make them, because when you eat these antioxidants in your vegetables or in vitamins, they get broken down pretty quickly in your stomach acid. So if you can produce them on site inside of your, beyond your stomach, in your digestive system, that will give those antioxidants the highest bioavailability, which is what you want. One antioxidant it produces is beta carotene, which is what your body will take and then convert to vitamin A. It also produces lutein, which is important for your eyes. Lycopene is another strong antioxidant, as is zeaxanthin. And astaxanthin is actually one of my favorite antioxidants. It has been found to be protective against cancer, and it's a more potent antioxidant than even vitamin C. And I know both oxidative stress, which is what antioxidants help against, and inflammation, those are two of the biggest drivers of all diseases in the body. So anytime you can help with your antioxidants, that's a wonderful thing to help your body. It also produces different vitamins, including your B vitamins and vitamin K2 again. Bacillus clausii. So B. clausii is another commonly used probiotic worldwide. That's the Bacillus species. And because it's a spore former like the other Bacillus spore formers, it has commonly been used during antibiotic treatment, because the antibiotics won't kill the dormant spore form of this particular probiotic. and it works against opportunistic infections. As I've discussed before, when you take an antibiotic, it kills off your friendly flora and it makes room for other bacteria in your microbiome that may not normally cause a problem, but if there's an open space, they can move in there and take over and be harmful for you. And that's the case with C. difficile and Helicobacter pylori. Those are two common opportunistic infections that can start causing problems after antibiotic therapy. Like the other Bacillus spores, it also has immune stimulating properties, one of which is increasing the antibody IgA. And IgA is something that the lymphoid tissue puts out that helps the immune system kill pathogens. And it's also actually helpful for autoimmune conditions, as most people who have low IgA levels also have autoimmune diseases. Now, it's also been found helpful against SIBO and IBS, and SIBO is small intestinal bowel overgrowth, where you get bacteria, sometimes from, they believe, the large intestine backing up into the small intestine, growing where they shouldn't. And lactobacillus and bifidobacteria probiotics typically aren't recommended for these particular conditions. One study with B. clausii found it comparable to antibiotics, actually, for normalizing hydrogen breath tests. And these hydrogen breath tests are one way doctors can diagnose if you have SIBO. So anytime you can use a probiotic instead of an antibiotic, that's a great thing. Bacillus licheniformis. And this is another bacillus spore that will actually help police the gut, like Bacillus subtilis does. This B. licheniformis will actually produce bacitracin, which is another naturally produced antibiotic, and that will help police the good and bad bacteria inside of your digestive system. It also produces a protease, which will help break down proteins inside of your digestive system. And B. licheniformis also produces a broad spectrum of the different B vitamins and folic acid as well. All of those are required for a healthy cellular metabolism, and those are also supportive of your cellular detoxification pathways. All right, and the last of the 5 Bacillus species is Bacillus coagulans. Now, B. coagulans has been found very effective against inflammatory bowel conditions. This includes ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, and IBS. And actually, one human clinical trial found that just in 90 days of supplementing with this bacteria, that patients saw significant reductions in diarrhea and other IBS symptoms. So this has been well studied when used for inflammatory bowel conditions. B. coagulans also produces a particular form of lactic acid called L+ lactic acid. That helps promote the growth of your good native bacteria in your gut microbiome. This L+ lactic acid is actually superior to the lactic acid that's produced by, lactobacillus type probiotics. This form of the lactic acid actually has been shown to normalize gastric juice acidity, maintain a proper gut pH, and it also helps promote the formation of the B vitamins inside of your GI system. Just like the other Bacillus species, it also is a potent stimulator of your immune system to get it out there fighting pathogens. And interestingly too, it's also been found effective against C. difficile. In the journal Gut Pathology, there were researchers from the Penn State College of Medicine that they found that this bacteria was effective against C. diff-induced colitis, and it helped prevent the recurrence of C. diff in test mice that had been treated with the drug vancomycin. So after these mice were treated with the drug, this particular probiotic helped prevent C. diff from coming back. All right, so when you put these 5 Bacillus strains together, it's actually shocking what these spores have been found to do. And that's really because when you get an effective, true probiotic, they go way beyond digestive health, which is just what common probiotics would hope to achieve. So yes, they'll help with digestion and they'll improve regularity, but they also have been found to really influence the immune system in ways that has been helping people with allergies, food allergies, asthma, and even immune conditions, autoimmune conditions, including rheumatoid arthritis. As I mentioned before, they also stimulate the B and T lymphocytes, and that's your immune system army of white blood cells that will go out after invaders in your body. So when these bacillus spores become active in your small intestine, when they get to your small intestine, they break open and they form the live part, the live cells, and they start growing and they stimulate this immune response in your body. And that's important for fighting any kind of bacterial infection, GI infection, and it's even helpful against viruses like the cold viruses and the flu. They've been shown to help control gut microbial overgrowth, as I've also mentioned with the SIBO. Also, antibiotic-associated overgrowths, and that includes C. difficile. And that's because they compete for space and nutrients inside of the microbiome. And that's how they push out those pathogenic or opportunistic species. They compete for space and nutrients. They create antibiotics and other substances that give them that advantage. I also mentioned they support your healthy resident lactobacillus and bifidobacteria species, and they do this in a variety of ways that I've already mentioned. They also produce up to 40% more short-chain fatty acids than your normal flora do, and other substances that help support the growth of your healthy bacteria. I also mentioned they make more lactic acid bacteria, and that specific form of lactic acid that's even more potent, and that helps make your digestive environment more acidic. That favors your healthy, good bacteria. When you use antibiotics, that actually makes your digestive system more alkaline, and that favors the pathogens. So whenever you can get more lactic acid in there to decrease that acidity, that's going to help your good guys. Leaky gut. What is that? Well, maybe it's a term you've heard, it's been getting more attention lately, but when your gut is inflamed and upset, it will leak tiny food molecules and microbes from your gut out into your body. They get into your bloodstream and they start circulating around your body. So you have an inflamed gut, and when it releases these molecules, it creates inflammation around your entire body. And like I mentioned before, that inflammation is really tied in with just hundreds of diseases now. So these bacillus spores have been found to reduce both digestive inflammation and systemic inflammation that's tied to leaky gut. And that leaky gut and this inflammation is tied to all kinds of diseases. They're finding this leaky gut is the primary insult and driver of IBD, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cognitive decline, immune dysfunctions, and even conditions like Parkinson's disease. So this resulting chronic immune activation caused by leaky gut is really believed to be a driving force behind all these conditions. I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit. These 5 strains of Bacillus also help heal damaged intestines. There's a lot of intestinal inflammation and colitis caused by C. difficile toxins, and in other gut issues like Crohn's disease, IBS, ulcerative colitis. So these spores help reduce that GI inflammation, which will help soothe these disease conditions. As I mentioned before, these 5 spores also help with reducing cholesterol and cardiovascular disease, and that is in part through nattokinase, which is produced by Bacillus, and vitamin K2 also lowers the cardiovascular disease risk. These 5 spores also produce and absorb critical nutrients and vitamins inside of your gastrointestinal tract, whether it's B vitamins, vitamin K2, and nattokinase, and then also your antioxidants, which reduce your oxidative stress in your body. And whenever you can produce those antioxidants actually inside of your GI system, that's the very best, because they often, a lot of times, will get broken down in your stomach acid. They just can't make the trip in full form. And these 5 strains also detoxify the intestinal tract, and this leads to issues when you have eczema and allergies, psoriasis, fibromyalgia. So they have been found helpful for those conditions as well. All right, let's discuss some clinical study results. That's the one thing I really like about the company that makes these 5 strains of Bacillus, is they invest in human clinical studies so we can see all the exciting things that happen when people ingest these spores. So last year there was a study looking at leaky gut, which I was just talking about, and this leaky gut is a driver of all kinds of inflammation in the gut and in the body that appears to be leading to most all diseases in humans. And when people took these 5 spores for just 30 days, there was a significant reduction in the leaky gut response. They found that 30 days of use of these 5 strains shifted the microbiome to a protective conformation, which blocked these endotoxins from getting into the bloodstream after meals. And these endotoxins are just like little bits and pieces of a particular kind of bacteria, and when those little pieces of bacteria get out from the GI system and into the bloodstream where they're not supposed to be, that's another big driver of inflammation. So the microbiome, after 30 days, started blocking these endotoxins from going out into the bloodstream. That's really exciting. People also found they had better insulin responses and a reduction in immune activation. So this is the first time that a probiotic has actually been shown to significantly reduce intestinal inflammation and activate the immune system to improve leaky gut. I'm super excited to see the long-term results of people with these particular diseases. I'm excited to find out about it, so I'll be looking forward to hearing more. These strains have also been found effective in preventing chronic urinary tract infections and upper respiratory infections. And natural doctors are also finding that these 5 strains are helpful for both bacterial vaginal overgrowths and fungal vaginal overgrowths like Candida, the yeast that can sometimes grow there, and that they also calm down vaginal inflammation. Another study showed in Europe that these bacillus are also an effective treatment for the small intestinal bowel overgrowth. And so once you take these spores, you ingest them, they pass through your stomach. When they arrive in your small intestine, they sporulate, they break out to the active form, and when they do that, they bring down the levels of bacteria in your small intestine that shouldn't be there. The bacillus also resist the fermentation process in the small intestine, which is what causes the bloating and damage to tissue when somebody has SIBO. There's a few more studies going on now, but I just find it truly amazing the breadth of positive health effects that these bacillus spores play in our health. Now these 5 bacillus spore strains create a really unique powerhouse probiotic when they're combined together. All 5 strains have been eaten throughout history for thousands of years, since they are soil organisms, and most recently they've been widely used across the world. Some of the strains I've talked about were developed by spore expert Dr. Cutting out of the Royal Holloway London University, including the patented Bacillus indicus HU36 strain, which is the first probiotic in history to deliver antioxidants right in the gut. Each dose of this probiotic spore blend delivers over 4 billion live spores daily. And importantly, each batch is tested in the laboratory to verify that the 5 species are in fact correct and what's in the bottle. And as I talked about before earlier in the session, early in one of the other sessions actually, is that a lot of times what's on the label actually isn't what's in the bottle. They also laboratory test the product to make sure they are 100% in the spore form, because you want to make sure you get 100% of those spores into your intestines. And they also verify the potency on each of the species of these 5 Bacillus strains. And these are also pharmaceutical prescription grade strength probiotics, so you won't find them in stores. They're only sold by health professionals. Well, I hope you see why these Bacillus spores are so special, and that with everything you've learned about true probiotics, that you'll never look at common probiotics the same way again. Now, these 5 Bacillus spores have verified targeted action against many types of digestive disorders, infections, and diseases, and that's super exciting. But they also go way beyond helping with digestive issues. I mean, they can potentially be a serious influence on your overall health and your immune system. And I think comparing probiotics to these true Bacillus spore probiotics is like comparing a tricycle to a Mercedes-Benz luxury car. And I really believe that what's been discovered through clinical trials and the use of these probiotics is one of the hugest things to hit the health industry in recent decades. Everybody knows about probiotics, they're all over the television and all over the stores, but true probiotics are something completely different, and they really, literally could be a life changer. I know for me, I've tried so many probiotics over the years, and only one of them, a pharmaceutical grade probiotic, did I ever notice a change in my body and my digestive system. And after I tried this 5 strain Bacillus product, it blew me away. It's been a life changer, so that I won't go without this probiotic in my life. It makes me feel so good on the inside. I'm not dealing with any active infections like I used to, but it makes me feel so good, and my mood is better, and I honestly am getting the best sleep I have in years. I personally take this with my dinner or a little bit after dinner, because it's important to take it with a meal or right around a meal. But with all these wonderful benefits I've been talking about of this probiotic in so many levels, from infections to health issues, it's actually our best-selling product, so much so that we have a really hard time keeping it in stock. So let me tell you how to get it. So you can get these Bacillus probiotics through our natural health store, which is Embrace Health Naturals. So if you go to www.embracehealthnaturals.com/probiotics, there you'll find a page that talks about some of the different formulations we have using these Bacillus strains. And these are pharmaceutical, professional grade products, so be sure to follow the use protocols we have for each of these products. You'll find them on the probiotic pages. And email us with any questions you have before starting the products or along the way. We're here to help. Well, congratulations, you made it to the end, and thanks so much for attending this probiotic series on the healing power of probiotics. If you have any questions or any questions on these Bacillus spore formers, we're here to help, and you can reach us at support@embracehealth.net.